Happy Monday, and we are clear of Mercury retrograde. Thank you. That was an intense period for 3 weeks, I gotta say. But I am so glad you've chosen to join me here today, and I've got a really good show on tap for you. My guest today is Denise Alexander-Pyle. She is a successful family attorney, and she is an author. She has written a book that kind of ties together the Jewish religion, the Christian religion, mysticism, a little bit of Islam as well, because they're all kind of based from the same place. Her book is called The Power of 10, A Guide to Living in the Modern World. And so we're going to talk about that today. So welcome, Denise.
Good morning, and I am so glad Mercury retrograde is done. It was a hard one.
It really was, and sometimes it just sneaks up on me. Usually it doesn't bother me because I was born with a retrograde Mercury, so it kind of feels like home. But boy, this time, if it could break, it did, so.
Well, as a divorce attorney for 42 years, I can tell you whenever it's Mercury retrograde, whenever it's a full moon, and whenever it's a no moon, just by the clients and the energies.
Yeah, I get it. So, I really enjoyed your book. I finished it last night, and I love it because I consider myself to be a Christian mystic. So it really spoke to me. But I think that so many of us, Denise, have sort of lost our roots as far as what are the rules? How do we live? What do we do? I mean, if we were Jewish or Christian, we were raised with the 10 Commandments, and then Jesus really brought the golden rule together into this. But, most of us don't really see how that applies today. So I applaud you for what you've done. And I'm just kind of curious. So what brought you to write this book? How did you get into this one?
Well, first of all, I was raised Jewish, so I had the Jewish education where I learned the 10 Commandments. I've been married 25 years to my current husband as a Quaker, so I definitely exposed to Christianity, and my second husband was Catholic, but I've always seen the connection, and I taught Sunday school back in 1989, 1990 to 15-year-olds, and the curriculum I taught them was the 10 Commandments, and as anything else, the teacher was the student, and I started seeing as we discussed it with modern Judeo-Christian ethics and how issues apply, I saw that the 10 Commandments were the root of everything. And the reason, if not that, obviously the golden rule, but I started seeing how we weren't applying them was the reason why everything was wrong. Anything you looked at that was problematic, you could see where somebody wasn't following the principles for the 10 Commandments. So, and then I really started seeing, this is really the roadmap for all humanity. Every religion everywhere has as its core something akin to the 10 Commandments and obviously the golden rule. So I said, it's universal. It's one of those simple, basic truths. So whether you believe Jesus gave it, Moses received it on Mount Sinai from God directly, or whether extraterrestrials came to Earth to give this blossoming young human race some rules because they were ready for it. It doesn't matter. They were given to us because they work.
Yeah, exactly. And, I think that, what's happened is that we have thought about, I think that I did for a while. I thought about that they seem to be old-fashioned. And so how could that really apply to me? But after reading your book, I really got a whole other different take on it, especially like the first commandment. You shall have no other gods before me. Boy, we sure do tend to deify so many things, like money, like, friends, like material possessions and things like that. And that's really a violation, isn't it?
Exactly. Well, the first commandment, I am the Lord thy God, it's really about our relationship with God, our source, ourselves, and each other. And that's, and the golden rule kind of comes from there. But that's the real Trinity, the first commandment. And it's about love and respect. Love yourself, love God, love each other, respect for one another. So if that's how we're supposed to live, because, we treat ourselves as being God's source and therefore creators or co-creators with God, as you teach, in all your work. Well, the second commandment tells you, and why it's number 2, no other gods before me, because these are all the things that take you in the wrong direction and keep you stuck in the material world. Because we're really a combination of light, energy, and then chemicals, material, and that to me is sort of the darkness, so to speak, the light and dark coming to form together. And these rules always keep us, like Dorothy Throne, from Kansas and on the Yellow Brick Road. These rules are how we stay on the Yellow Brick Road back home, because the answers are really within us.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So many, one of the other ones that really calls out to me is the one about you shall not covet your blah, 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 neighbor's wife, his horse, whatever. I think that we create so much problem for ourselves when we allow jealousy to step into our lives. In the first place, we're not honoring ourselves, which is violation of those first 2 commandments. And secondly, it creates an energy and an energetic entanglement that never turns out well.
Well, the most important thing, we're all here to be the best versions of ourselves in this lifetime. And we're here for each of us has our own journey. And if we're too busy, looking at somebody else's journey and worrying what they're doing, you're not finding the joy and contentment in your own. And that's really why the 10 Commandments are really not just about how to live with one another, but they're a pathway to joy and contentment in your own life. Because they follow from one to another till you get down to that commandment, thou shalt not covet your neighbor's belongings, because now you're finding joy in your own journey.
Yeah. I mean, a couple of them are obvious, don't kill, don't steal. Those are just kind of, I think.
But they have layers to them. Thou shalt not kill. People think about don't take the life of somebody else, unless you're obviously threatened, and sometimes you don't have a choice. But that's not what it's just about. In every commandment is its opposite. So if you're not supposed to kill, what are you here to do? You're here to create. You're here to live. You're here to make beauty, because you were given these gifts to do it. Plus, killing isn't just a body. Our thoughts, our actions have repercussions because we're energy. So we don't want to create, by our words or actions, the death of somebody else's dreams, their ideas, their thoughts. So you have to look at it energetically. So when I'm applying the 10 Commandments and the Golden Rule in modern times, I'm looking at it, starting to look at it energetically, looking at it both figuratively and literally, so that we see that it applies in so many layers that people think, well, I've never killed anybody, but whose spirit have you killed? Mm-hmm. Not meaning to, by saying something wrong. That's why, random acts of kindness are so important, because they create life.
Exactly. And, another way that we kill that we, I think, aren't necessarily cognizant of doing it is when we abuse Mother Earth from an ecology standpoint. That
Absolutely.
That layers down and destroys.
Stealing too. The stealing and the killing in terms of the wildlife, our oceans, stealing the use of it for the next generation because of hoarding, because we're supposed to be stewards, and we're supposed to make it better than we find it. And that's, we're here to do better than what we're given to work with, and we're not doing a very good job of it right now, which is why the book to me was so important right now, because I believe God gave me the message to send out to wake us up and say, here's your rules. If you do it, everything follows, because it's choosing light. It's choosing taking care of what needs to be done. It doesn't mean you can't have prosperity or enjoyment, but in the Old Testament, when they were wandering in the desert, if you kept more manna than you could eat, it turned into maggots.
Yeah.
It's the same thing. We are not recognizing by us trying to hoard and people trying to have far more than they can possibly use unless they're sharing and giving it to the next generation. In some respects, it's destroying them and our planet because that's not how it's intended to be used.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So there is a sense of urgency about this message, right?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, read the paper every day, listen to social media, look at the divisiveness. I mean, even the third commandment is about peace and coming together. You know, when it says, do not take the name of the Lord in vain, how much divisiveness are there today in the world where people's using the name of God as a sword instead of as a hand out? I mean, it's supposed to be about peace and taking responsibility for our actions, not about divide and conquer. That's why, again, you go through the commandments. Their ranking follows the importance to us all in how we live on this planet.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely, it does. Absolutely, it does. You know, one thing that you didn't really speak to too directly on that particular commandment about taking the Lord's name in vain is the energetic component of it. A lot of people don't realize that when they curse somebody, they're actually doing something that is tangible to that person. You know, if you say God's name and then you say, damn it, you're asking God to strike that thing. And trust me, it creates an energetic vortex that's aimed in the direction of that person. And guess what? Karma says it comes right back at you.
You are so right. You are so right. You know, and as I said, the book, there are even other points that I've realized, you know, that I can apply just by trying to live it better and doing all these interviews and things where I say, next time I would add this, or if I had to edit it, just, you know, certain things that I don't think come off as strong as they might, just in terms of, you know, gratitude. I mean, and our service, you know, which is really in Thou Shalt Not Steal. It's in, you know, again, have no other gods before me. You know, we're here in service and gratitude as opposed to, you know, worshiping material goods. So, you know, it's there. But that's the nice thing about the book. It allows everybody to find the message for themselves and apply it. And really, you know, it's a starting point, not an end point.
Exactly. Now, one thing that I found fascinating in your book was how you really, you format it on the Kabbalah. And, you know, the Kabbalah has been a source of fascination for me for a long time. I never really kind of heard of it until people like Madonna started wearing these little bracelets, you know, and they were like all fired up about being students of the Kabbalah. It's quite interesting how you don't hear a lot about that anymore. That was sort of a fad I think they went through. And I was trying to, and I actually even went to California and took a class on Kabbalah to try to figure out what on earth are they using that for in their lifetime, and I never did get the connection.
All right, let me share it if I can real quick.
Okay,
First of all, Kabbalah is the ancient Jewish mysticism. Really finds how energy goes through the cosmos to Earth. It's really quantum physics, and it's basically depicted by the 10 Sphirot on the ladder-like tree of life design, and there's an invisible one called Dot, which is in the upper center, which is the knowingness, the oneness of everything. But each sphere represents an attribute of man as we go from heaven to earth. So the top one is Cheder, crown, and the bottom one is Malchut, or kingdom, you know, the kingdom here on earth. And each of the spheres actually corresponds energetically to one of the commandments on the 10 commandments as you go from 1 to 10. And I saw the connection, and they're both referred to in the, you know, Jewish religion as the tree of life. The Torah is also referred to as the tree of life in the 10 commandments. I said, this didn't happen by accident. There's a correlation. So while my book really isn't about Kabbalah, I use the attribute associated with each of the sphere as an overview for that commandment. So if Cheder is crown. I am the Lord thy God. It's how we honor our own crowns, how we're crowned to be, one with God, how friend like, on this planet for joy and contentment. So that's really what is how I use the Kabbalah here. And it worked, and it's very true that each of them are a guide. Just like if you study Kabbalah, you study each of these spheres and that attribute, and you anchor that particular attribute in your life when you're studying it. And interestingly enough, there are 22 pathways on the Tree of Life that connect each of the spheres, and they are the basis for Turo. The 22 major arcana cards that are Turo are actually come from Kabbalah.
And I had known that before. And I think it's so interesting because so many people, especially fundamentalists in their religions, think that Turo is evil. And it's actually biblically based.
Well, somebody did say to me, though, that, and I don't know if it's true and I haven't researched it, that Moses actually stole Kabbalah from the Egyptians when they left, and it had been originally given to the Egyptians, and then they were not really doing anything with it. That was somebody's theory. I thought was very interesting because it's that ancient that it could have culturally come to us the way a lot of the ancient Egyptian wisdom came to this,
I believe that to be, that feels right, so I think that probably is true. We'll never really know for sure because, that was then and this is now.
Of course, but it applies.
Yeah, exactly. So, how can we then take the wisdom that you're showing us in this book and make this world a better place for us individually and collectively?
Well, I think, first of all, if we all started being cognizant and aware, and it's all practice. Nobody's perfect. I thought every day when I do my prayer, I say where I could have done better the day before. But if we try to be consciously aware of how they apply, which is why at the end of each chapter, I put what I call commitment. At the end of each chapter, I give some suggestions how to anchor the principle in your life and invite you to come up with your own. So that's number one. Because again, everything, the more you do it, it's like the 100th monkey. Other people start doing it. You share the message, and it becomes the standard by which we expect our leaders to rule, business people to operate, our local governments to function, because now we have a morality. We have a basis, a foundation of truth, of honesty, of integrity from which to operate from. And if, in the old days, if you didn't follow up by what was the standard, you were excommunicated. You were just shunned. And we don't do enough shunning of people who don't operate in integrity.
Yeah, we don't, we're not supposed to judge other people, but we sure as heck don't have to support them and continue to associate with them if they're not in integrity. That's one of the biggest foundations in my own life. I can't be a part of something. Honesty and integrity and truth are my core, and I can't be a part of it if it gets out of integrity.
Right, because we have it's okay to have beliefs and opinions. As I said, I'm not here to say who's right or who's wrong. I'm going to tell you it doesn't feel good. It doesn't honor who I am. But when I see, and this is my hard part, where I'm a problem solver by nature, 42 years of being a lawyer. So my nature is I want to fix it. And I want to, I could go in an inner city, almost any city, and I could come up with programs to help solve the problems that are there based upon my background and experience. And it's frustrating to me that it's not happening, and there's been money thrown at problems that can be fixed if we could all come together and say, we want the problem solved. We don't want to talk about it. We don't want to blame people. We just want to hold hands and fix it.
Yeah.
And, that's because most people I know feel the same way. most people don't, want to be part of the solution.
Yeah, exactly. So, Denise, how can people find you and find out more about you, and how can they get their copy of the book?
Well, first of all, if you don't mind me showing, here's a copy of the book so they can see the cover, which I painted.
It's beautiful.
And it's got the tree of life depicting the commandments, the top half and the bottom half, with a Star of David and actually a cross lightly imposed in it. But Denise Alexander-Pyle, or www.denisealexanderpyle.com, is the book website, which has a link in order you can contact me, you can order the book, you can follow my blog where I'm sharing programs like this so people can find me. And Denise Alexander-Pyle, I'm all over social media, but the book can also be found on Amazon and Kindle and through Balboa Press, who's the self-publisher.
Fantastic. And so what's going to be next for you, Denise?
Well, right now I'm concentrating on trying to get this message out because I believe that's really important. That's why God channeled the message through me, and then I was able to use my experience to edit it a little bit to make it more readable. But I hope to write other books. I have actually a book about a crystal. This crystal was part of that journey, but it was buried in Aspen. A book that was given to me through Kabbalah that needed to go somewhere for healing, and it has the most incredible story about that crystal, because this crystal got teleported back to me by the Tibetan monks when I left it with them by mistake. And that's part of the journey. You talk about magic. If I hadn't been there, I wouldn't have believed it. So, and it was another violet flame crystal that was given.
We're having a little bit of
to be in the spot it was. It was just, and then how it got replanted where it needed to go for healing. So that's the story. And I'd really like to write a book, The 10 Commandments of Divorce, how to end your marriage without sacrificing your soul. Because that's something my 42 years of experience, has some wisdom to share. And I think my clients all do well because, I'm able to, spiritually connect with them and help them through the process. But I teach them tools to use that just aren't out there, and most lawyers, particularly today, don't take the time to do that.
Exactly. No, I think that's really important as well. Well, this has really been fun and enlightening, and I want to thank you so much, number one, for being my guest, but number two, for pulling this together and writing this book and getting this out there so that people do have access to it. So thank you very much.
Thank you for having me. I enjoyed this.
My pleasure. And next week, my guest is going to be Joy Elaine. We're going to be talking about the Earth's evolution and her new book called The Path to Sweetness. And I really want to thank everybody for tuning in today. I really appreciate your support. And I want to remind you to go to my website, sign up for my newsletter, and when you do that, you will get a free subscription to the online version of my Inner Speak cards. There are these cards right here. And it's automated. It's completely free, and you can opt out of my newsletter at any time. I never share the list with anyone. And if you opt out of the newsletter, you can still continue to enjoy that subscription so that you can clear away the blocks that are holding you back. Another thing I want to make you aware of is on the homepage of my website, you can actually opt in and get a free complimentary 15-minute session with me to clear something that might be up for you right now. It's just the little button that says start here, start now. So these are the things that I have for you today, and I can't wait to see you again next week. And remember, people who take responsibility for their lives create the reality they desire. Love you all.